Hello, everyone. We are here for the 63rd Premio Faenza Talks. This is episode 9. We have 6 artists who are going to talk. We have Mingshu Lee, David Morrison, Max Mustardo, Lizaveta, Portnova, Yaerin Pyun, and Irina Razumovskaya. I hope I pronounced it right. So I am part of the jury for the 63rd Premio Faenza Talks, for Faenza. And I am very happy to be here with you. We have some wonderful young talents here today. And I did do some research, and I am very fascinated by the fact that you have some kind of similarity between each of you because you all work with form, surface, and sculpture. Without further ado, let us hear from the first artist, Mingshu Lee. Mingshu is actually from China, but she is based in Oslo, Norway. And her work is about environment and breaking away from the traditional use of the clay. She's questioning who she is and where she lives. Let's hear from you.
Hi, my name is Mingshu Lee. As you see, originally from China, and I currently living and working in Norway as a ceramic artist. At the very beginning of the presentation, I would very much like to thank the Faenza Prize for selecting my work, and I'm truly honored to share my experience with all the talented artists here today. So as you can see, the first picture here in my presentation, my work is deeply inspired by the environment around me. I explore how clay can be used as a medium to reflect on who I am and where I live. Black form, showing in the first picture, is the very beginning of my artistic practice. I think it was in 2019, and it was my second year living in Norway. So, making art helped me feel more grounded and secure in this new environment. So I kind of started collecting elements that I have never seen before, those forms and structures from the everyday surroundings of Oslo. So one of the most interesting discoveries was the ventilation pipes you can find on the right side of the picture. They are, I could say, really everywhere in the city, and they kind of immediately attracted my attention. And there is a fun fact: many locals hardly could notice them because they are too close to see them, as someone once told me. Next page, please. At the same time, I became very curious about the holes in ceramics. Technically, holes allow air escape from inside of a clay sculpture during the firing process. So they are actually play a very significant role, and they possess their own form and meaning. But they have been always hidden in corners. So I was like, why not give them a very central position? So that was the moment everything kind of came together, and I combined the concept with the tube shape and creating the symmetrical form, as you see from the picture, with two holes on top. So since then, the holes and airflow kind of become two keywords in all of my artwork. Next page, please. I think it was in 2021, I started using clay as a clay extruder, which turned out to be perfect to merge hose and airflow in a single fluid motion. That's the extrusion. So when clay is pushed through the extruder, you can really feel its energy, and all the small air bubbles inside of the clay often burst and leaving holes on the surface of the tube. So those clay tubes, whether shaped by my hand or through the extruder machine, are constant elements throughout all my work. Next page, please. And the process of creating those organic shape begin with making small clay tubes, which I then assemble them together, basically layer by layer. On the left side of the picture, you could see this gloop glaze. That's what I'm exploring with right now. I'm kind of trying to developing my own recipe. I think it's a very magical material that something between clay and traditional glazes. It kind of melts, but could not completely melt. I'm always very curious about what happening during the firing inside of the kiln. But the fact is we can't film what happens. So, but I think this glaze does really capture the trace of the invisible transformation. Next page, please. This is a sculpture group. I could represent my current research. It tells the story of the straw flower pattern. I think it's a quite well-known motif in the European porcelain industry. Um, Originally from China, same as me, and traveled around about 280 years to Norway. It's a fascinating story. I never learned in my Chinese history books. I think I can't go too much details now due to the time, but briefly, inspired by Chinese blue and white porcelain, this pattern was first simplified by Mason Porcelain Factory in Germany, and then it traveled through Denmark and where the Royal Copenhagen aided some Japanese influences. And finally, it made its way to Norway. And I think that was in 1888 or something. So I couldn't help but compare my own experience with its journey. This story has now kind of blended with my own artistic language. I expressed through the media and material most familiar to me in the form of ceramic sculptures. Next page, please. And finally, this is a piece selected by Faenza Prize. Again, I return to the symmetrical shape, and this time I use this black stoneware with very rough grog. As the clay shrank during firing, this grog pushed through the surface and creating small cracks and textures for the sculpture. I think I will end it here. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you for sharing your work, and it's fascinating about the straw flowers. How do you find living in Norway?
At the beginning, it's very hard because I live in China, and living in a city very south of China is for me more than 80% of the year is summer. But Norway is like you can't really get used to the darkness through the whole winter time. So it took me quite a long time trying to figure out who I am and what I'm doing here. Actually,
in terms of exposure, is Norway good for you for your work?
I think so. I think Norway is, if you're considering about as a new established artist graduated here, you can see the way like clearly where you can improve yourself. So I think it's quite stable environment for newly graduated artists.
Yes, and will you be developing your work, moving away from the pipes, or continuing to use that as your main theme?
I think so, but I'm kind of added some more things like year after year.
Right.
So it's a
Yes.
developing of the sculpture itself, but I'm also trying to keep this tube shape as my own language.
Yes, because I see your influence from different famous artists,
Yeah, I know,
Yes.
especially
Yeah,
some
yeah.
Norwegian.
Yeah, yes, especially in Norway. So, yes. Okay, thank you very much for sharing your work. And if you have, those of you who are listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask as many questions as possible. Thank you very much, Mingshu. Next, we'll hear from David Morrison. David did studio art with an Asian studies focus. I believe he's from Chicago. Have you finished your MFA?
Yes, I just finished my MFA this past
Great.
spring at the University of Oklahoma.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And he's mixed media, trying different things with playful objects, exploring the Anthropocene, and recontextualizing the superfluous waste from our consumptions. So let's hear from David.
Yes. So my name's David Morrison. I'm originally from outside Chicago in the sprawl of the city. And I'm currently living in Connecticut right now, working at the University of Hartford. I'm really thrilled to be sharing some aspects of my work with you all today and honored to be a part of the Faenza Prize. This is the piece that's in the Faenza Prize, 63rd Faenza Prize. It is titled Souvenir of Future Landscapes. It's comprised with shards that I amass from junkyards and the surrounding environments around me. And with these curious shards, I amass a library of refuse. And through a repository of found and both made objects, I craft a world that seeks to reveal the value of junk cohabitating with us. In this image, there's the U-bolt that's from a junkyard in Oklahoma. And working within a framework of play, my practice utilizes found objects and a multitude of processes rooted in ceramic medium. And then through my assembly process, I sort of collage and merge these medias together to create what I think of as a micro landscape. And then through this interaction between clay, non-clay, and forage fragments, I'm trying to understand our current moment of living in the Anthropocene, living among these ongoing ecological crises involving pollution and global warming and so much more. I see each piece as a micro landscape, and then later on there will be an image of how I use them to create a larger idea of how I see our landscapes now and moving into the future. My process is really slow, intentionally so oftentimes, in sort of the opposition to the fast-paced of our daily lives, trying to spend time foraging, whether it's in the neighborhoods I'm walking around or specifically in the hyper-concentrated waste collections of junkyards and recycling yards. And yeah, next slide. So entering into the junkyard, I spend about half my practice sort of walking through junkyards, collecting, foraging, and stacking junk fragments, marking my path through the junkyard. I see the junkyard as an ecosystem itself that's within a larger, more natural ecosystem. This is maybe more of a human-made ecosystem that has piles and piles of waste, but also people who are going in and recycling and reclaiming things with intention. And then I see myself as this junkyard scavenger who's going in with a bucket and some gloves and gathering junk and waste pieces, dirt off the ground, sort of taking the discard from those that are taking the discard. And then as I go through the space, I'm making these junkyard cairns. They're sort of ephemerally stacked totemic sculptures that are maybe last for a day or maybe last for 30 seconds. And I just try to document and make them as I move through. These are using larger fragments that I cannot take back into my studio due to scale and the sheer weight of them. And then next slide. And so through the multiple, I'm making lots of different pieces and then collaging these in mini series of 3 to 5 at a time, pulling from the libraries that I've built from both making clay objects that are informed by the junk that I'm gathering, and then gathering based off of the forms that I'm making in my studio. And so through that, I amassed this like landscape of micro landscapes that together to me create this larger idea of like how I see sort of an imagined future and of like how we can perceive junk. Also, it just gives me an opportunity to play. I work in a very large framework of play. And so then through that, the multiple gives me more opportunity to like build that into my practice. And then through that, try to find a way of like holding reverence or like seeing junk in a way that isn't just this discarded material that's often overlooked. Next slide. And then while I'm also creating these collages on top, I'm thinking about what's beneath and what's not able to be visible to our human eye, specifically in junkyards and other spaces in our environments. There's the toxic oils and waste that seeps into the soil. And so I also try to imagine, while what's above, what's also below us, thinking of these as core samples, imagining the layer of the Anthropocene being built on top of the previous geological time period through glaze, and sort of imagining that, how I see it going forward. I also think about the way that we perceive junk and trying to get the viewer to move and have an energy output or input into the work to see how they can shift their perspective to view something differently. So I use these green veils as a way of framing or concealing junk. Next slide. And then this is just 2 more micro landscapes on a table that has acrylic casting light shadows through the plywood top, thinking about the grid and again, like the layering of our landscape. And yeah, next slide, please. And then lately I've been working with some neon, trying to, again, envision what's beneath the landscape that or like in the earth, and using light and like the gases of neon to sort of begin to envision how we can like begin to perceive something that we can't really see. So, and that's sort of where I'll leave it.
Well, thank you so much. It's really fascinating. And I also see that both you and Mingshu are very conscious about the environment. I often wonder, even with the food cartons and all these, after, cooking, what's going to happen to the world, because, it's just so overpackaged, everything. I mean,
everything is. It's hard to avoid it. It's just even when you try to it.
Yeah, and to bring awareness. I mean, I think you have abundance of material that you can work on with these micro, landscapes of assemblages, which you do very well. Yeah. How did you come about working in this way?
I think, well, part of it was just being in grad school and trying to just having critiques and studio visits constantly. And also just having the time and space, I think, to like really dive deep into it. But it came about from, I was like visiting these junkyards and I was just making the junk fragments in clay. And then slowly it started to shift into the things I was foraging became part of the work instead of just the inspiration for the work.
At the same time, in terms of artistic delivery, I see references from Nokin also. Yeah, so it's quite, pleasing to the eye at the same time. Yeah. And I've read that you've done Asian studies. How did that influence you?
Well, I think was primarily, it was when I was an undergrad and I was making pottery, and I was really interested in the pot as this connector and facilitator of connections, and thinking of like the history of ceramics. And so it was just sort of this way of trying to understand and learn more about the medium that I was interested in. So I think I just carry a lot of that with me, even into this work.
So, it's good to get questions from the listeners, but also to ask among yourself, because I think, you can ask Mingshu and Mingshu can ask you a lot of questions. So let's see how it goes at the end.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Now we'll hear from Maxwell Mustardo. He is very focused on perception and signification, engages ceramics as a polyphonic medium which speaks multiple voices, but he's also focusing on the basic shapes like the mug, the vases, the torus. But if you see his work, is very much to do with materiality. So let's hear from Max.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is Maxwell Mustardo. I'd like to thank the Faenza Museum for having me and for selecting one of my pieces for this show. I got a chance to go there a couple of years ago. It's such an incredible museum with a really incredible collection. I'm totally honored to have a piece in the building. Next slide, please. This is a studio portrait of me in the studio where I'm currently sitting and I'm currently the director of. It's the former studio of Toshiko Takaezu, who's a very well-known sort of prime modernist ceramist, well-known for closed abstract expressionist vessels. I coincidentally grew up right down the road from the studio, and have been working here for almost 15 years now. And I've been heavily influenced by being around her and kind of being enveloped in the history of ceramics directly through her, and also because my parents work in the museum world as art conservators. So I grew up sort of wandering around the Met and everything else, looking at old Greek and Roman amphora and things of that nature. A lot of my work looks into the history of ceramics and reinterprets forms, whether they're archetypal forms like mugs, pitchers, amphora, or more contemporary things like some of these squishy bottles pictured are variations on vase forms that Robert Turner and Peter Voulkos were making in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. These abstract expressionists, again, sort of slashing, pinching, poking, prodding vessels, giving them a little bit of a direct physical impression from the body. The ones that I've been making, sort of softening the edges, making them a little bit more sensual than toning down the aggression, I guess, perhaps. Some of the other pieces here are reinterpreting ornamental forms. So there are the two pieces directly in front of me that look kind of like squash or pumpkins. I've been calling gadrunes. Gadruning is the inversion of fluting. So if you think of Roman columns that are sort of scooped out, gadruning is when they're billowing out. So I tried to make a form that was entirely using this ornamental technique. Next slide, please. One of the more foundational forms that a lot of my work stems from is the toroid, which it vaguely resembles a torus, which is essentially a donut, geometric donut. I was really interested in vessel forms, making pots, etc. But I wanted a continuous surface, a continuous canvas, similar to Toshiko's work, something that I could mass produce and then experiment with surfaces on in a kind of voracious manner. This particular example is a crystalline glaze. And I just use these as a jumping off board to experiment with materials and surfacing options. Next slide, please. From there, I started reintegrating some more generic pottery forms. essentially taking that toroid form, the form of the torus, and putting a handle on it, playing around with the definition of what a mug is and what a mug could be, what a mug is not. So this has all of the architecture of a mug. It has an interior space, it has a handle with a hole in it, but it has no real accessible interior space. So certainly a sculpture of a mug rather than a functional one. I should note too, this is a PVC rubber surface that I developed. I got a grant while in undergrad for doing research on non-ceramic surfaces for ceramic objects, and developed this technique where I'm spraying liquid rubber on onto forms with different pigments saturated in and different directional sprays. Next slide, please. After the mug series, I started taking that visual vocabulary of big, doughy, squishy, and non-functional forms kind of around town. So here's an example of a pitcher, very similar to the mug, taking that generic form, basically inflating it, but trying to keep all of the architecture there, all of the definitive elements of pitchers. So this does have a sort of channel and a point from which a pitcher would pitch normally, but you'd really have to want to use it to try and get anything going. So a sculpture of a pitcher. Next slide, please. This is the work that was selected by the Faenza committee. It is a variation on a Roman amphora, and I say Roman in particular, not of the Greek amphora, which are beautiful and in perfect proportion and painted and full of iconography and symbolism. But I'm much more attracted to the Roman amphora, which were used for utilitarian storage and transportation, oil and wine and grain, etc., because they were mass produced, and you can really, they have like a very charming sense about them. The proportions are really awkward. The handles are messy and squished on. They're warped. They're tilting. They just have much more of a accessible sensibility to them than the sort of lofty and perfect Greek amphora, which I also love. But I find these a little bit more interesting and relatable. So I'm very pleased this piece was accepted in. It's a great example of this series. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, all of my work is hand-built. I spend most of my day just pinching clay around and poking and prodding. Next slide, please. I tend to work in large series, exploring subtle variations of form, really seeking things out. So this is from I think it's a couple years ago now, but just cranking out a bunch of these mugs and a bunch of pitchers, moving various elements, playing proportions. It really grinds my gears. Fun to just be in the studio in production. Next slide, please. These are just some details of the PVC rubber surface. So you can see the spray maintains, it's sprayed and atomized, and it really maintains that sort of resolution. So they're very high-res surfaces. And they do have some squish to them, which is fun. Next slide, please. In addition to the PVC surface, I've also been developing glazes that kind of resemble that. They'll be a bit more archival. Again, my parents are conservators, so they bug me a lot about using plastic rather than ceramic. I tell them that conservators need jobs too, but anyway, glazes are kind of the thing to do, and it allows you another way to get about work. I can make the surfaces 2 inches thick rather than a ½ inch, which is pretty exciting. And I believe that's all. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Max. Where does your color inspiration come from? Because you use very bright colors, and I think to someone viewing it, it's very pleasing to the eyes, juxtaposed or put on the kind of the organic shapes that you are using.
Well, I'm a bit of a maximalist. Somebody was asking me why I use, like, for the piece that's in the show, why that orange, and it's because it's the most orange, you know, fluorescent orange.
Right.
Just can't get more than that. So if that sort of color is on the table, I'm going to use it. I'm interested in aposematism, which is like predatory coloration, which is actually where the the traffic orange comes from. Biologically, we look at a coral snake or what have you, and it makes our brains go crazy.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you've really kind of evolved, or it was like an evolution from Peter Volkers and all that movement, and the fact that you're taking the pictures, the mugs, and dissecting it freely into your own interpretation. And I think maybe your background with your parents might have influenced that too, also.
Very, very important. I did get a degree in art history. I'm fairly obsessed and neurotic and interested in the history of craft and ceramics and art and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important that you do take it to another level, and I'm very familiar with seeing your work, and it's very exciting to hear your talk today. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So now let's hear from Lizaveta Portnova. Yeah. So, Lizaveta, I met you in Mino last year also. Congratulations this time for Faenza. So let's see what you've been doing lately. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, but today I'm like translator of Liza, but in fact, my English, well, just with Google Translator. So I talk about Liza work and process because we work together more than 25 years, and I can speak a lot about her works. So please, next photo. It's not first, but one of first objects from series that Liza presented in Faenza, where Liza used already made object and continue make new. So at first, Liza find or make special for new object some ceramic piece firing, and after use it for make new piece. It's funny that in this object you can find the name of this object horse, and funny that in this case you can find it's but possible and object that also iris. This vase was made 20 years ago. Please, next photo. It's also object from this series. It's honor for me because many ruins that you can see in this fox. It's my work, and during the firing, my object destroyed, and after Liza used this destroyed object for her for this sculpture. I also want to say that Liza usually don't make a sketch. It's improvisation because when she find some piece, ceramic piece or material, she use it like starting point of idea, and if she make a sketch, it's just for fixing idea, because when you play with ready made objects or piece of this object, you can find a different way how to continue the shape of line. Next photo, please. I think it's also horse, and it's also difficult to find, but I think it's possible because this object include two candles, and they also was created maybe few years, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before Liza made this object. And also it's important that her technique allows to make her object during many years, and sometimes she make one object for 3 years, and also she like make a lot of firing. I don't know how many firing in this object. Maybe you remember.
10,
Maybe 10 firings, and it's okay. And also really she don't know also maybe this object transformed later for a new object. So it's never stop. This process never stop. Please, next photo. This very really very fragile object because here it's you can find black porcelain, different piece that was made special for this object. So sometimes Liza use ready-made object, different artists. Sometimes she makes special like experiments, make some pieces, and after connecting in something new. So that's all for this. Please, next. Yeah, this Grand Prix Milan. The title of this object, the kiln, and the story of this piece. In this object included a piece of our kiln. We made this kiln maybe 25 years ago, and during one firing, one piece broke it and a little bit destroy our kiln. So this piece of our kiln now in this object, now in Japan, in Mino. Please, next photo. Oh, yeah, it's sculpture that presented Liza in Faenza in this great event. It's a great honor for her, for me also, for Ukraine. I want to say that the shape of this sculpture was made maybe 1 month before the war, 3 years ago. But Liza have opportunity to visit Kiev, Ukraine, our workshop. Now it's empty place, but when she visited Kiev, she have opportunity to make something in workshop. So firing of this object was created during these during last 3 years. And also the title of this object is Iris Doe, and the ways that you can see in this object also you can find in first sculpture, the horse. Oh, I think it's all. Maybe next photo is the same object, but another course. Yeah, maybe a little plus that about improvisation, because Liza don't have plan when she work. She don't have plan about form, about shape, and different records. It's a very different object, because when she see that better if line goes this way, she make another way. She destroyed composition every time during the process. So it's and thanks a lot for document that museum make for delivery, because we delivered this object from Ukraine. Now it's difficult. We make a similar document in Ukraine museum, but anyway, sometimes it's impossible. So we know that now today this piece in museum, yeah, it's great. It's great. We are happy it's happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Lizaveta pushes the boundaries in ceramics and really tests the different elements that ceramics offers by playing with, for instance, the kiln piece, the parts and the props of the kiln, and then applies oxides and glazes. And her form has a real strong presence, which is almost like fossilized. And it's quite powerful what she's doing. Thank you very much. So now let's hear from Yaerin Pyun. Yaerin also is very much into creating sculptural forms and also testing the surfaces. They are based on these scholarly stones that were collected in Asia. So Yaerin, please give us your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the introduction. And I'm truly honored to be selected as a finalist for the Faenza Prize and to be part of this talk. Hello, my name's Yaerin Pyun. I currently lived in Korea and I studied in London 2 years ago. So to introduce my work is often inspired by nature. I'm especially drawn to subtle details like weathered stones, moss, lichen, and snow-covered surfaces. What fascinates me most is how nature is always changing. I think it reflects the rhythms of human life. Just because something changes doesn't mean it's fleeting. If anything, change makes each moment feel even more precious. So I was born in Korea, so my work is deeply influenced by Korean culture. And in Korea and other parts of East Asia, there is a tradition of collecting stones called susok or scholars' rocks. It's quite similar to the Western idea of a cabinet of curiosities. The philosophy behind susok is about seeing something vast in something small. It's not just about owning a piece of nature, but about seeing something, but about contemplating it, forming a connection with it, and reflecting on one's own existence through that relationship. So this way of thinking and my cultural background continue to play an important role in my practice. Next slide, please. So this series began during the COVID period, when I spent a lot of time seeking out places in nature where there are no people. So observing and collecting in those quiet, solitary moments became the foundation of this body of work. My process usually starts with collecting stones. I'm drawn to the shapes formed through erosion, compression, solidification, and weathering. I make plaster casts of these stones and also transform elements like moss and flowers into ceramic forms, rather than simply replicating nature. My work acts as a kind of archive, capturing memories, myths, and histories within each piece. Next slide, please. I often explore dualities like life and death, value and worthlessness, beauty and transience, permanence and impermanence. I take stones that feel solid and permanent and make them fragile and hollow. And I use ceramics to preserve things like moss and flowers that usually don't last. This kind of ambiguity allows my work to question fixed meanings and invite viewers to see things from new perspectives. Next slide, please. This piece, Poem for Ephemeral Moments, 13th of December 2024, was selected for the Faenza Prize. I choose a title as a tribute to fleeting moments, those delicate passing experiences that are often overlooked. What I loved about this piece is that it looks different from every angle. It never feels the same. In terms of process, I started by casting actual stone and use press molding technique. And I create this texture by layering clay and glaze. And also I use moss. So I dip moss into porcelain sleeve and fire in the kiln several times. So after firing, the moss burns away and leaving just ceramic. Next slide, please. So for me, these transformations highlight how the essence of existence isn't just about what we see. It also lies in absence, in what's left behind. That's why I focus on what's invisible rather than visible, on absence rather than presence. Through this, I explore the boundaries where fixed meanings can shift. And I'm interested in how objects can become something more, something personal, open to interpretation, especially in a world that's constantly changing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Yaerin. So why do you dip the moss in slip? Why do you use this process?
Because firstly, the texture is really interesting. And I think the moss has the meaning of ephemeral. So I want to shift the meanings, ephemeral things.
To make it lasting.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. We are all afraid of ephemeral things. We think we can live forever in this world, you know. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Last but not least, let us now hear from Irina Razumovskaya. I hope I pronounced it right.
Hello.
Irina, I learned for something very fascinating is that with her process, of course, she's also very experimental and very conceptual, but she has no waste with her work. And I think it aligns with Mingshu and also David, who previously talked about our environment. So let us hear from Irina.
Thank you so much, Hyeyoung, for the introduction. And I do have some waste, and yeah, sustainability is not a direct focus of my whole practice, but yeah, it's just something I do naturally. Once again, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Irina Razumovskaya, and I'm a sculptor working with ceramics, and I'm based in London. And I'm really, really delighted to be selected for the Faenza Prize, and of course to meet all the fellow, not all, but some fellow artists here, even briefly and online. It was absolutely wonderful hearing about your works, and I'm really happy to share mine. Next slide, please. So I'll begin with the Monolith, and it is a piece that was selected for the prize. And it responds to the uncertainty of our times. And I think that we live surrounded by endless, often conflicting messages. And that creates this really heavy, sticky sense of doubt and instability. And in this work, I wanted to capture that unsettling atmosphere in a material form. Next slide, please. And the shape of monolith refers to stained glass, and it is usually a symbol of light and clarity. But here you can see that the surface is really dark. It's almost burnt and resistant. Next slide, please. I applied glaze by hand, smearing it and leaving my fingerprints as though someone is trying to scratch and kind of find their way out of this sort of darkness, out of this unclarity. And this tension between clarity and obscurity is the core of this work. Next slide, please. So in my portfolio, my wider practice builds on these themes of tension and ambiguity. Next slide, please. I work with hand-built ceramics to explore identity, displacement, cultural memory. So through fragile and textured surfaces that I use in my work and minimal forms, I aim to create a quiet but yet emotionally charged object. Next slide, please. So I see my work as existing in between the artifact and the sculpture. And my works are quite minimal in shape, but they feel aged, fragile. They feel like they're in flux, that they're shifting and changing, and therefore carrying invisible stories. And often they evoke ruins or remnants, suggesting that history and memory are always layered and somehow incomplete. Next slide, please. So I'm also often drawn to religious references, iconography, as it is a part of my Russian background. I'm originally from St. Petersburg, and not in a literal or devotional way, but more in a secular way. And I use those elements to evoke a sense of timelessness and universal. Next slide, please. And also in my practice, I'm drawn to imperfection and transience. And I like a drama in the kiln. I let materials behave unpredictably. I encourage glazes to crack, peel, and reveal this vulnerability. And through this, the surface itself becomes a silent storyteller. Next slide, please. My sculptures, I believe, invite close and quiet looking. And through touch and textures, I want them to bypass the language and to connect directly to the senses. So yeah, that's the brief introduction of my practice. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Irina. I like the way that your work is so free from any bounds, you know, the shape. I mean, you're very conceptual, but once you treat them with the different layers of surfaces, I mean, how did you manage to become so not bounded by anything? It's like limitless.
Do you know what? I think when I was 18 years old, my first residency was in Japan in Tokoname, and I met a lot of wonderful crafts people, artisans, makers there. And I've learned, you know, it's quite banal to reference Japanese references, but you know, still, it made a huge impact on me. And there was one potter, and unfortunately, I forgot his name. And he said that he was from Bizen, and he said, you know, I turn into my material. I kind of like walk with it. I sense with it. I feel what happens to it in the kiln. I feel what happens to it outside the kiln. You know, and I think that was really something that guided me. And I just like this intuitive sense that I've always had, that I just kind of, I'm quite fluent in terms of like chemistry and knowing my material very intimately.
Exactly.
Therefore,
Yes.
yeah, I just kind of think of a path of what's going to happen to this material and somehow direct it, you know, and hope for the best outcome. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a disaster.
Yes, it's a rare talent, and it's fascinating because, you know, you can do so much. As you shared with us, the similarity of the stained glass and the meaning behind it is translated into clay. And I think all of the speakers today have that kind of freedom within them because the surfaces and the forms are so interesting. So now that really brings us to the end of the talks. But if you, the artists among yourselves, have any questions, I think the best part of the Faenza Prize is the talks. And I think truly these episodes are so rich in content, although they're not long enough, rich in content for those who are viewing. I really think that it will inspire those of you who are specializing in ceramics. So Mingshu, David, Max, Lisa, Irina, Yaerin, do you have any questions for each other? Because I do see a lot of, I'm fascinated for Faenza, how they pick the artists, because today there is a kind of a uniform language that flows within all of you. So do you have any questions for yourselves? No?
First of all, round of applause.
Well done. Very well done. Yes. So, I mean, Max, do you have any questions for Yaerin? Because, you know, you're both working in very intricate kind of surface treatments.
No questions off the top of my mind, but yeah, I loved your work, Yaerin. Really enjoyed everybody's talks. This was fantastic. Good to get to know some of the folks in the show.
Do you have something for Max? No?
No, not really.
Okay. And Mingshu, for David, no?
It feels like I go back to the high school classes that a teacher asking me questions.
Yes, I'm forcing
No,
you to ask questions.
I think David present his work very well. I actually, before the presentation, I did a little bit of research of everybody's work through Instagram, and I know a little bit about everybody's work.
That's good. And Lisa, Irina, any questions you want to ask the other speakers?
Yeah, I just wanted to, since I'm paired with Lisa, I just wanted to compliment the work, as I've seen it previously on photos, and when I was listening to to the talk, I just thought, oh my God, like how lucky Lisa is for working so intuitive, just having it in the head. It feels so light, so easy, as if it just comes. And I truly, in a good way, envy artists like that who just have it like so easy, and it's beautiful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I think all of you have done a wonderful job, and the thing that I like most is that you're so individual, so don't lose that individuality and the innovation in each of your genres that you're working in. And I would love to see the pieces, for real when I go to Faenza. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your presentations. It's fascinating. It's also a great learning process for myself, who I've been a curator for a long time. So without further ado, I am told to introduce the participants for the next episode 10 already. So we've been doing this since I think the end of March. So they are, the names are very difficult, but I'll do my best. They are Peony Sylvia Sessa, Eduardo Wang, Zhao Jingru Zhu Jiang, and Zhang Ningning Bianjiwan, Gyoko Monica, and Kenji Gohi. So everyone who is listening, please use this time to learn and also to relate. And I hope you will create something more fantastic in the future, all of you. And I will continue to follow all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Hyeyoung,
much.
also
Thank
for
you.
moderation
Thank
and
you.
wonderful questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.